All right, Dave, we alive. Thanks so much for taking out some time, my man.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it.
So let's start at the beginning, man. As you can see, my background, I'm excited about this fan film. How did you get involved with the fan film Dylan's New Nightmare? How did that come about for you?
Well, it came about from Cecil Laird of the Horror Show YouTube channel, who's the writer and director of Dylan's New Nightmare.
Okay.
And I have my own YouTube channel where I talk about horror movies and all that kind of stuff. And Cecil, I had actually met Cecil at the 40th anniversary Halloween convention. The 45th anniversary was just this past
Was
weekend.
this past weekend? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So at the 40th in 2018, I was there in Pasadena, and I was there all weekend. And that's where I met Cecil for the first time. And he had said, you know what, you should come on my channel, do an interview, we'll talk shop, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, yeah, for sure, for sure. And then, of course, everybody gets busy and time goes by. And then I guess it was about almost a year later, I think it was the following summer, really, to be honest with you. So the summer of 2019, he had reached out to me, and Cecil knows that I'm a voice actor. I've worked in the entertainment business for 22 years, and I'm a filmmaker as well. So I do understand, that side of the camera too. And and on my channel, on my YouTube channel, which is just something I do for fun, I guess there were some times where I would, in a fun sort of not serious way, but just kind of do a Freddy Krueger impression or just kind of have fun with it, whatever. I'm not really being serious about it. I just was kind of just having fun, being, cartoony with it, whatever. But Cecil, said he saw something in that, even though I was being kind of silly and, not really too serious. I think he saw the potential and knew that I was a voice actor and knew that I was an actor. I mean, even though you're a voice actor, you are an actor as well. You're just behind, the microphone. And that's how I began my career, actually, was on camera. And then I fell into the voiceover side of things. So he knew all about that. And the gentleman that he had initially had on board to play Freddy was sort of beginning to lose interest. He wasn't an actor by trade.
Oh.
So he was more of kind of cosplay Freddy, and he was beginning to lose interest in the project, and Cecil was looking for somebody else. So he did this kind of sneaky backdoor sort of audition with me during our interview, or during his interview with me on his channel. Where he said, if you could, I think he said something like, if you could do your best Freddy, or, what would you do? Or he laid it out, I think he laid it all out, and I gave, not joking around now, I actually gave him sort of a bit of something, and he really liked it, and he saw the potential in it, and that's when he basically asked me, listen, I'm doing this thing. We got Miko Hughes on board. We got Vincent DeSanti on board. What do you think? And I thought that the opportunity was, too good to turn down. And it's not too many times that you get, because I knew about the process. I knew that Nora Hewitt was on board. I knew, and I've said even on my own channel, I knew that this would be the closest anybody could get to playing Freddy Krueger officially without it being official. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, you're playing opposite Miko Hughes. You've got Nora Hewitt, who's doing all the effects. Shout out to Mikey Rotella as well, who did the mold. And, you have a situation where I'm in the makeup chair and it's getting applied to me for like 5 hours. And, usually that's not fan film territory. I mean, that's what you do when you're doing the real thing. And so I knew that I was going to look great, and that I was going to, it's as close to the real thing as you can get without it being the real thing. So that's ultimately why I said yes.
Yeah, man. No, I was gonna ask what it was like kind of stepping into those shoes, but I mean, you definitely, like I said, you nailed it. I mean, like, it was scary. It was on point. Yeah, I mean, it was incredible.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was like I saw it, being a fan from, like the mid 80s, and I was like, holy shit, I'm like, this is the best version I've seen that's not Robert Englund himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and to be fair, there's only one other guy that's done it other than Robert and me. I
True.
mean, I guess now me technically, but for all intents and purposes, I'll say. Um, but I don't subscribe to, and I never have, although I do understand, and I've said this publicly as well, is that I do understand why people say Robert or nobody, nobody, but Robert. I get it. I totally understand that. There's an emotional, nostalgic attachment and connection. He's really outside of, the 2010 film. I mean, he's the only guy that's done it. He's such a ham and a personality in public anyway. Just Robert Englund is such a charismatic, ham kind of guy. He's got such a whimsical nature and charisma about his personality that it's so difficult to imagine anybody else in that role. And so I can intellectualize that. And I understand that, it's like, for our, generation, I mean, Harrison Ford will always be Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford
Sure.
will always be Han Solo to us.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that there is nobody else ever in the history of the world that could ever step into the role of Indiana Jones ever, ever, ever. It doesn't matter what, never, ever, 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 and do it justice. It doesn't mean that, because there was a time when people thought that nobody could do the Joker better than Jack Nicholson, and along
True.
comes Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
So, and then nobody said nobody's going to do it better than Heath Ledger. Along comes Joaquin Phoenix. Two
Right.
very different Jokers, but
Sure.
two very much the Joker, right?
Right.
And so, I, as an actor, I know that. And so I'm looking at it from a bit of a different perspective than maybe the average fan who's just thinking about it from that emotional, nostalgic attachment, which I do too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Robert too, 100%. But I knew that it could be done, whether it was me or somebody else, it could be done. And I'm not the only one that could do it. I'm not the only one that can do it. I mean, I was afforded the opportunity to show that it can be done, but there's others out there that can do it too. And if I, if this was my last sort of, my one and only shot, and I never play him again, I hope that my legacy with the character was at least been able to show fans that it can be done.
Sure.
It can be done when you hire the right person who understands the character. It can be done. Because my job, and I can only speak for myself, was not to go in and do a Robert Englund impression. I'm just going to go in and just going to do Robert Englund. If you see Robert, you feel the spirit of his Freddy there. Well, that's great. But my job was not to go in and just do some sort of cosplay caricature mimic. My job was to go in and understand the character of Freddy and the nuances and the idiosyncrasies of the character, bring my own spin to it. But when you look at me, you go, well, it's not Robert, but it's definitely Freddy.
Yeah.
And that I think should be the goal of anybody that steps into like in the situation. It's like Heath Ledger, right? Well, it's not Jack Nicholson,
Right.
but it's definitely the Joker. Or a better comparison would be Heath and Joaquin, really, because
Sure.
they're more alike than Heath Ledger and Jack Nicholson's Joker. I mean, Jack Nicholson was that cartoony kind of guy. Heath Ledger and Joaquin are more similar. And Joaquin was incredible.
Sure.
A very different Joker, but very much the Joker. And that should be the mindset of any actor when you're stepping into the shoes of an iconic, legendary character that is so embedded into the pop culture zeitgeist. You don't go in trying to do an impression, because you're just going to set yourself up to fail. You just understand the character, bring the nuances there, and let the chips fall where they may.
Oh man. Well, definitely sweet. I loved it for sure. And I read that horror is your favorite genre, right?
It is. Yeah.
Me myself as well. I'm a huge horror fan. You could probably see my shirt.
I can. Freddy Krueger. I love it.
So
I love it.
I'm not going to lie to you. I had no idea I was interviewing you today when I wore it. So I find that hysterical that I just happened to wear this shirt today.
It's meant to be, man. It's meant to be.
So I willed it, as you could say. So
yes, you did.
do you have a favorite film in the genre? And also, do you have a favorite Nightmare on Elm Street? Mine's number 3.
Okay, yes. So my favorite, I mean, there's so many amazing horror movies. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't have any kids, but like all my horror movies are like my children, right? So,
Sure.
it's hard for me to pick one. But my favorite horror movie is the original Halloween from
Right on.
1978.
Right on.
I'm a big Halloween guy. If anybody who follows my channel, that will not be a surprise to them. Um, so it is my favorite horror movie of all time. The original Halloween is also my favorite of the Halloween series as well.
Sure.
Um, Elm Street, I will say that my favorite Elm Street movie is the original.
Sure.
But I really do like and I like part 3 as well.
Yeah.
But I really like part 2, 1
Sure.
and 2. And I think it's I know 2 takes the creative liberties and really kind of stretches the dream continuity. Wait a minute, I thought he's trying to, but I thought you had to be a dream. Like I get all that, and it's been the black sheep of the Elm Street family for a long time. Obviously, for a variety of different reasons. And but Freddy is so frightening in that movie. The
Yeah.
makeup job from Kevin Yeager, and just the way he looks great in part 1 too, and he's great in part 1, but the way he looks in part 2 is just, I mean, it's worth the price of admission alone.
Yeah.
I think the opening dream sequence on the bus, I think it's the best opening dream sequence, excuse me, out of any of the Elm Street films. It's just the way the bus is teeter-tottering on that one pillar, and he gets up and he's laughing and he's bringing his knives up like this, and the girl's like, what's going on? And you don't really see him, right? He's kept in shadow. You just kind of get like a sense of him. You get a sense of him, but he's there, and it's like, what's going on? And it's just he's so scary in that movie, so scary in that movie. And so, I mean, the movie itself is, I know it's not, I mean, the story, is not as great as the first one. Freddy is downright incredible in that one. And I like 3, as well. I do.
Sure.
But 3 is that hybrid. It's the fan favorite. Most people will turn to 3. It's that hybrid, excuse me, between scary Freddy and funny Freddy. And you start to see that kind of that changeover. I'm not a huge fan of funny Freddy, so I much prefer the darker, scarier side. And that's why I think I gravitate towards the first 2 movies the most.
Yeah.
But 3's good.
That's
3's
cool,
good.
man. No, I dig it. And you also, speaking of Halloween, you've played Michael Myers in a few fan films over the years.
Yes, nothing on the level of Dylan's or Never Hike Alone, or my fan film, of course, It's Me, Billy, which is a Black Christmas fan film. This was just sort of me just farting around having fun.
Sure.
Many years ago, but I took it seriously. As a filmmaker, you cannot, even when we pick up our phones, and we shoot something just to have fun, we're not really taking ourselves that seriously. They always end up looking pretty good because we understand composition, we understand lighting, we understand, all those things. So they end up actually turning out maybe better than the average farting around might, from the average person. But they were just, to have fun with and whatnot. But I did, yeah, I did, and it's fun, I enjoyed it.
That's pretty cool, man. I love it. So, your voice can be heard in, thousands of radio, TV commercials, video game, movies, right? So let's, I guess tell us about that side of you, going from, like your voice acting side.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started off when I left college in the early 2000s, 2001. I wanted to be an on-camera actor, and that's what I started doing. I started auditioning for commercials and docudramas and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm Canadian. Obviously, I'm here in Toronto, Canada, and so I was playing street hockey with some friends in the early 2000s, and it's a very Canadian thing, I know. And I broke my tooth. The shaft of the stick came across my teeth, and I broke my tooth. I was like, oh my God. So I was put on hiatus a bit from my agent while I had to get that fixed. And then I started to do more voiceover work. And I've always done voiceover my whole life, really. I mean, I dabbled in radio when I was in college and all that kind of stuff. So it
Cool.
wasn't completely foreign to me, but I started to get into the voiceover side of things around 2003, 2004, and then I never looked back.
Wow.
And so that's what I've been doing. I'm full time. I've been full time since 2006, working in the entertainment biz since 2001. So it's 22 years now. It's a long time.
Incredible.
And I've done a lot in voiceover. I've for the first, I would say 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, for the first 16, 17 years of my career, I spent most of the voiceover side in the commercial, promo, narration, that kind of side. And then about the last 5 or 6 years or so, I've been really doing more on the animation side, which is great. But yeah, I mean, I've done movie promos for It Chapter One, The Crazies, The Descent, Big Hero 6, oh, what's that other one? The Disney one, Inside Out.
Oh wow, that's
I've
cool.
done, yeah. So, and these are just not I'm not in the movies, right? I'm
Right.
doing the trailer or the promo or the 30-second TV spot that you see. And it's also important to say too that I'm not the only one that does those things. So it's not like Dave McRae is just the guy that everybody goes. That would be great because then I'd probably be in some gigantic yacht and have my own island or something. But but there's a lot of us that do that kind of stuff. So but I have been fortunate enough to be one of those guys that has had an opportunity to do that. And so those were some highlights. Those were some really, some fun stuff. But I've done everything from, I mean, radio and TV, commercials, Walmart, McDonald's, Coke. I mean, all sorts of stuff. I've been doing it a long time.
That's so
So,
fun.
you've probably heard my voice, but wouldn't have known it, obviously, because when you're just in voiceover, you're out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
But it's been a blast. I really enjoyed it because I realized that I could be creative and I could flex those creative muscles and still be part of the business and still act. But as a voice actor, there's a certain level of anonymity that comes with it that isn't when you're in front of the camera all the time, right? People know my face now from my YouTube channel, not necessarily my voiceover career. So it's been kind of cool that way. I've really sort of enjoyed that, but now I'm doing more animation. I'm on 3 shows right now: Luna Chip and Inky, Super Wings, and then this new show that we're recording called Lana Longbeard, which is about this. I think the target audience is like, I want to say 5 to 8 year olds or something like that. It's not out yet. We're in the middle of recording it. And it's about this little girl that's and her family, and they're all like pirates or something, and they go on these adventures and stuff. And I play this character named Helmet Hugo, who's like a little sidekick. And
That's awesome.
and yeah, it's been a blast. So I'm really enjoying the stepping up the animation side of my career because, like I said, for 17 years I was in commercial, promo, narration, trailer, all that kind of stuff, which is great. But I really love the animation side too. So anyways, I could go on and on and on, but it's been a fun ride. I've been fortunate enough to do some really cool things.
So you also let's talk about I got time for one more. So your upcoming film, It's Me, Billy, Chapter 2,
Yes, that's
is
right.
currently in the works that you co-wrote and co-directed or co-directing as we speak. I think you're still working on
Yes.
it. Let's talk about that, man, because that's really exciting. I'm a big Black Christmas fan.
Yeah, so in 2021, myself and my best friend of over 30 years, Bruce Dale, were who also works in the industry here in Toronto, and in 2021 we released a fan film called "It's Me, Billy." And it's on YouTube right now, Vimeo right now, and it was it is a direct sequel to the original Black Christmas from 1974. So
Right.
Black
Yeah.
Christmas is a Canadian film shot here in Toronto with largely a Canadian cast. Not everybody, but there is a large Canadian cast, and it predates Halloween by 4 years. It's one of the most important horror films in the genre, but because it never spawned a franchise like Halloween or Elm Street or Friday, it left the pop culture consciousness, or basically didn't even really enter the pop culture consciousness until the internet, until years and years later. And so it's had 2 remakes, one in 06 and one in 19, which are 2 completely different sort of directions for the franchise. So we came along and we thought, well, why don't we do a direct sequel? It doesn't need a sequel. We love the ambiguous ending and it's great, it's mysterious and all that kind of stuff, but let's see if we can do it, because we really wanted to start doing more on the filmmaking side of things. And even though it's a fan film, like Never Hike Alone, Dylan's New Nightmare, we are shooting this professional, top to bottom, through and through. And that's what It's Me, Billy was. So when you watch It's Me, Billy, it looks like something you'd watch on, Netflix or something like that. I mean, that's the level of production value and professionalism we brought to it. So it is a fan film because we don't own the intellectual property, so we can't make money from it.
Right.
But it's professional through and through, top to bottom. And it's a short film, about 38 minutes without credits, 42 minutes with credits. Anyways, it ends on this cliffhanger. And so I don't want to get into spoilers for your viewers, but it ends on this cliffhanger, and which was intentional. And because if people really liked what we did, very kind of much like what Cecil has done with Dylan's New Nightmare and that kind of stuff. If we had studio money, well, then we would have just done the whole thing. But when it's crowdfunded, sometimes you got to take things in stages.
Sure.
And so it's the first part, and there's a cliffhanger, and people seem to really respond to it. Obviously, if you're a Black Christmas fan, an original Black Christmas fan, you will probably gravitate towards it more than the average, maybe, horror fan might, because Black Christmas, we understand, is very niche. It's more of that psychological theater of the mind kind of horror, not necessarily blood, guts, and gore. So if you're looking for Friday the 13th, you should go over to Vince and Never Hike Alone and blood, guts, and gore. You're not going to get that with, Billy. But nonetheless, people seem to really respond to it and like it. And so we are in pre-production right now on It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, which will be the final installment. It picks up immediately where Chapter 1 has left off. And there are 2 Black Christmas alumni from the original film that will appear in our film. And I'll leave your viewers to do some digging on it to find out who those 2 are, because we're very, very excited about this. It's been, covered by all the major sort of horror, the online, Collider, Screen Rant, Bloody Disgusting. It's very exciting. And we are hopefully, as of doing this interview, 7 weeks away from going to camera. Wow. Now, that all depends if we can get our SAG interim agreement, because as of doing this interview with you, SAG-AFTRA is still on strike. Right. And we have one SAG-AFTRA member that is to be in the film. And in order for that to happen, we have to apply for the SAG interim agreement. We are not associated with the AMPTP, so we should be approved without issue, but we are waiting for that. So our fingers are crossed that we get that in time so we can go to camera at the end of November. But if you're a Black Christmas fan, especially the original, and you haven't heard of It's Me, Billy, which is entirely possible because, again, it doesn't have the same pop culture footprint that a Freddy or, Jason has, just YouTube It's Me, Billy, and it should be the first thing that pops up. And we are in, like I said, pre-production right now on Chapter 2. We're very, very excited about it.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. Well, I can't wait for that. And, I just want to say again that knocked it out of the park with your Freddy, man. Just incredible.
I appreciate that, Mike.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I'm glad we had a chance to chat, and hopefully we could chat again soon. All right.
Absolutely, buddy. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.